Sunday night, Morgan Wright here, Open Unsolved, CEO founder of the National Center for Open and Unsolved Cases. Just going to close out the week. It's been a good week. It's been a long week. It's been a tiring week, but we're making a lot of progress thanks to a lot of you folks out there. And I just wanted to kind of give you a recap and kind of understand the why. I put in the title, a recap of the weekend. This is the way. We have to focus on what's ahead of us, right? If you haven't read the book by Ryan Holiday called "The Obstacle Is the Way," you got to read it, right? Doesn't matter what's in the way becomes the way, right? What the obstacle in the way becomes the way. So no matter what's come up, we're going to work through this. So this is the way. This is the way we're going to do it. So we got the registration started for volunteers. Got a good response so far, but we definitely need more. So go to openunsolved.org. Scroll down the page there. You're going to see a thing about volunteers positions now open. Click on Find Out More. That's going to take you to the registration sheet. And this is going to get into what I'm going to talk about. Why did I pick the three groups? What's driving that? There's some business reasons behind it, as well as moral reasons, as well as just pure impact reasons. So I'm going to talk about that as well too. But we got a lot of progress made on the impact or the input from our user acceptance testing, making a lot of headway on that. We're down to just 8 issues now. We started with around 30. We're down to 8. So making great progress with our team from Whitfley. And this next week is all about getting volunteers. We got to recruit more volunteers, got to get our training set up. In the meantime, I'm working with our team at the National Center to set up our first training for law enforcement on September 12th. But the law enforcement portal will go live on September 4th, which means we've got a lot of work to do between now and then to get things ready. And the biggest thing is my biggest metric 1,000 cases. We have to have 1,000 cases in there for this thing to be, I think, effective because we're going to start in Virginia, right? We're going to start getting agencies here, but with the volunteers, and that's some of you folks listening that you've already registered, we're going to be able to input a lot of cases. And I'm going to go through the three focus areas and why I picked those areas, and I'm going to give you the stats behind them. That'll give you an idea of why we can make such an impact on that. So let me just talk about when I talked about it, there's the law enforcement side is going to have an agency control officer, agency case officer, right? They're going to be in charge of liaising with the agency, helping coordinate the cases, but they're going to be what's called the agency case officer. So they're going to be the umbrella that goes over everything. But on our volunteer side, we're going to have volunteer case managers. You're going to be in a leadership position with a team of up to 10. And I explained why no more than 10 span of control from a leadership standpoint. You can only do 10 effectively. And then we will put analysts, then we'll have volunteer case analysts underneath that. So the analysts will work with a volunteer case manager, which is a leader. I hate to say the word manager, but they will, in a sense, provide a lot of the management, the oversight, so that we can get the cases in there. And then our three focus groups. Group 1 was fugitives from justice. Group 2 were unsolved homicides. Group 3 were missing, unidentified, and unclaimed. And here's why. This is why I picked these. So I continue to always do research and I try and find out, okay, I just want to make sure we're zeroed in on the numbers. Look, at a certain point, it's kind of like if you're a billionaire, which I'd like to have that problem. Look, but if say you were worth 10 billion, another million, not going to make a difference to you. I mean, it'll make a difference to somebody else, but it's like at some point, it's just statistically insignificant in terms of your actual wealth, right? So there's nothing statistically insignificant about homicides, but you do reach a point to where whether it's 250,000 or 260,000, the financial impact, the tax that we're all paying for those unsolved homicides is still a significant number. Like I said, just with unsolved homicides alone, at $10.9 million per criminal death, if you assign that to all the unsolved homicides, which I'll give you the number here, just that number alone is greater than the GDP of 183 nations. There's only 7 nations whose GDP would be higher than the cost of all unsolved homicides in the United States right now. Linda, hiya, Linda. And here we go. Linda said she put her application in. Woohoo! Remember, you don't have to be law enforcement. You just got to be somebody who's willing to say, I want to make my community safer. I want to be a part of it. Holy crap. Sorry about that, Linda. I'll tell you, See, it disappeared on its own. So anyway, but let's talk about this real quick. So I have continuing to do research, right? Let's talk about the number of unsolved homicides in the United States. A lot of this comes from the FBI supplementary homicide report, the stats that they collect each year. There's also, I work with Thomas Hargraves at the Murder Accountability Project. In fact, I wrote a affidavit for them on the Sentinel case management system. Things that to make sure that they were trying to get the government to give more information on homicides. So um, even though it kind of some people say that it's as high as 346,000, when you look at the FBI data, and we're averaging about 17,500 homicides a year, our murder rate, or our clearance rate, the number of cases of homicide we cleared by arrest, went from 90%, 92% in the 1960s. We're down barely above 50% right now. I mean, that's a huge drop in the solution rate, which means then each year we add to our debt, we add to our number of our backlog of unsolved cases. So basically, about that, my thing that I'm staking my number on is 250,000. That's based on FBI data. That's based on a lot of other reporting. But I'm comfortable saying 250,000 now. Every life counts. It's like I love what Harry Bosch said. He said either everybody counts or nobody counts. Michael Connolly wrote the great books. I've got a signed book actually by Michael Connolly. Good stuff. But either everybody counts or nobody counts. But for us to get started, whether it's 250,000 or 360,000, we're not going to be able to address all these cases at once. We're going to have to start somewhere, right? Start where you are with what you have, do the best you can. And that's what we're going to start. So right now, I think we're going to look at about 250,000 unsolved homicides. By the way, beer of the night tonight is Tint Meadows. It's a Trappist brewery in Leicester, England. There's the bottle, always the bottle, and then the bottle cap has to match, the emblem. So don't anybody get out there thinking that, oh, he's an alcoholic, he's drinking all the time. This is like, after I put in about 175 miles on the bike this week, training for a ride next week, it's like, you know what? You can enjoy this in all good things in moderation. Let's talk about missing, unidentified, and unclaimed. This is a number that shocks a lot of people, right? So when we go to NAMUS, the National System for Missing and Unidentified People, the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, these are the numbers in there. And actually, we had somebody, and I think it was Tia, they have found on some of the work that they've done that the numbers inside NAMUS are not always correct. There are some cases that have been cleared, the person has been found, but the case is still in there. So that's on the agency. If you're law enforcement, you're watching this, that's on you guys. I'll tell you a quick story. I shot my radio one night. This is how it happened. So I get called out at preview to that when I was a state trooper. About 2 months before that, my lieutenant borrows my patrol car. Storms are working out there. Winter storms are there. Southwest Kansas, it's bad. So he's using a marked patrol car. Well, the wind blows a trailer, an empty cattle trailer into my patrol car, damages it. It's got to get fixed. So I'm driving a 1981 Mercury that has been miled out, Sergeant Burl Engelmeyer. Why do I remember all this stuff? I don't know. There's a point to this. There's a point to why you want to make sure you remove records. So I got called out to work out a fatality hit and run. I am up almost all the night, but I'm supposed to get up in a couple hours, drive 6.5 to 7 hours to go to Topeka to swap the miled out car that I'm driving to get my patrol car back. Now, you got to remember, I was doing a lot of felony stops, getting out a lot of times the shotgun. So on a 1984 Plymouth Grand Fury, if you want to lift the steering wheel up, there's a lever on the left-hand side. You pull that lever, the steering wheel goes up, and then I can slide my shotgun around, go out the side, do a felony stop. So I'm coming up K156. This is going to be a funny story. Give me just a minute. I'm coming up K156, coming up into Ellsworth, and I see this tag in front of me, and it comes from a county that if you see that tag and you run it, good chance something's wrong with it. Well, it was reported stolen. I'm now following a stolen car on, an hour and a half of sleep after being up for 36 hours, driving to Topeka in uniform in a marked patrol car. So we're coming into Ellsworth. One of the troopers up there said, "Hey, you just hit the lights. We'll pull them over." So I started hit the lights, pull them over. So what I did was what I normally do is go to hit the lever, steering wheel comes up, pick up the shotgun, go around. Being tired, I jacked around into it, had my finger on the trigger. When I hit that lever to raise the steering wheel, it doesn't raise the steering wheel on an 81 Mercury. It turns on the bright lights. The steering wheel didn't go anywhere. The bottom of my shotgun struck the steering wheel, goes off. I'm deaf. It looks like Cheech and Chong, smoke rolling out of the windows. And nobody can hear it but me. One of the guys sees, what the hell was that? I'm deaf. I can't hear anything. Well, we get up to the car, and it is an old couple with a friend of theirs that's just as old. And I'm going, there's no way. The car had been recovered 3 days earlier, and Topeka PD, Topeka Police, you're responsible for this, failed to take the car out of NCIC. Here I am doing a felony stop, shooting the radio in the back of my back of my patrol car, or Burl's patrol car. You couldn't tell. It's just a small little hole went in, blew up the thing. So I get a, dear Captain, nobody was more surprised than me. So Tia, you're on there. I was just diming you out. I was talking about this is why you have to take cases out of the system. And that's why part of the role of the analyst and part of the role of the case manager is to do the quality assurance, is that before we get a list of missing persons, before we take any action on that, first thing you got to do, are they still missing or not? NamUs is not the only place. So what might have to do some open source research, might have to do some other things, but we do not want to put a case into the system where the person has already been found. It's a waste of time, nor do we want people giving leads on, well, he's my neighbor. He's been there for 6 months. What's wrong with you guys? It's a credibility issue. So that's why we've got to take records out of there. So from NamUs, missing persons, as of just a few hours ago, 25,620 active unresolved cases. Now, some of those probably have been found, so we have to be careful what we do. Think of that, 25,620 for the Virginia State Police. I showed them a map during a training session we're doing one time. I showed them clusters of missing women out of the Richmond area and out of the Tidewater area down by Newport News, Virginia Beach. There were clusters of women that had gone missing, and it was just this is what we got to focus on. A lot of these people, they're not just missing, they're most likely victims of homicide. So we've got to find them, and we have to determine what happened, to determine, are they just missing? Were they mentally ill? Did they walk off? Or are they victim of kidnapping or victim of homicide, right? When Amanda Berry, Michelle Knight, and Gina DeJesus went missing, they weren't just missing. They were kidnapped for 10 years by Ariel Castro. Unidentified persons, remains where identity is unknown, 15,416 unknown remains that are in the case. And Linda was saying there's still an unsolved case here. Dad worked in Virginia Beach. These are things that we're going to do. And like Tia said, actually, Tia, I'm going to put up put that up so people can see it. So there's numerous unreported people not in NamUs. The number is estimated more like 40 to 50,000. That could be, matching missing persons that are already in NamUs. So in other words, whatever the number is there, the number is never the number. The number is either skewed in one direction, there's too many in there and it's not accurate, or there's too few in there and we're missing a lot of cases. So, and then unclaimed, these are the ones I was talking about last night. These are the people who your heart just goes out to. They've died alone. There's nobody there to claim them. So unclaimed persons, identified remains not claimed by next of kin, 20,622. So you add those up together, that's 45,000, 55, 60,000, say 60 to 70,000 people in the United States that are missing, unidentified or unclaimed. So we got to solve that. That's the reason I picked that group as well. And then fugitives from justice. This one's a little bit tougher number. We have to try and figure out at any one time. But here's a good metric. Here's what we can start with. What we can start with is what the U.S. Marshals reported as just the U.S. Marshals alone, them and their task forces. They have the fugitive task forces out there that also work up. Several of my friends have worked on those. Good friend of mine, when he's a chief of police, hosted the fugitive task force out of his building in Grand Prairie. Steve Dye, he's chief of police now at another town. He just couldn't stay retired. He retired, became assistant city manager, retired, and they said, hey, you want to be a cop again? So he goes back to being a chief. Fugitives from justice. But guess what? The U.S. Marshals alone last year, just the U.S. Marshals alone last year, arrested 88,765. They cleared 88,765 warrants. Now, when we start taking a look at the number of people that are in what's called NCIC, National Crime Information Center, so that is the centralized system that when you have a stolen car, stolen person, violent gang, terrorist organization file, what they call VIGTOF, other things like that, that's the central place that when a police officer or state trooper stops you, one of the things they're checking for is your car stolen. Guess where they check? NCIC. They check to see if you're wanted for anything. Guess what they check? NCIC. So NCIC is to law enforcement what Holmes is to us. It's the central place where all the dots are put so we can connect the dots. So when we look at it, I mean, obviously there's also a huge surge of immigration related warrants. These are a lot of people who are overstays, people who have already deportation orders. We've also got FBI's top 10, U.S. Marshals 15, but they're thinking some of the stuff says there may be about 2 million active warrants across the United States. 2 million for felonies, right? When you get into misdemeanors, you're getting as high as 5.7 million. Chances are we're not going to focus a lot on misdemeanors. If the agency wants to put that in there, that's up to them. But from our standpoint, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on felonies. We want to get the worst of the worst first. That's what we're going to go after is the worst first. So the homicides, the sexual assaults, the human trafficking, the fentanyl distributors, terrorists, cartel people, whatever it is, that's who we're going to go after. So this is the way. Tell you a story later, but the quick story is I got actually hired by PepsiCo and Lucasfilms to do an investigation for them, techie related, but somebody had leaked confidential plot information for Star Wars 1, Queen Amidala, Senator Palpatine, confidential plot information. But I got a good insight of what the plot was, what's coming up. I got to see stuff about the Mandalorian, just pretty wicked stuff. But the one thing I like about the Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal, by the way, remember we said we're all connected by 6 degrees of separation? 2 degrees of separation from Pedro Pascal. I know Murph. Murph was my podcast partner, my buddy. And Murph knows Pedro Pascal because Pedro Pascal came to Ashburn, hung out. Him and Boyd Holbrook hung out with him and Javier Pena as they were getting ready to film Narcos. They went down to the DEA Academy. So remember what I said? We're all connected by 6 degrees of separation. In fact, I'm directly connected to Boyd. I actually helped him get his podcasting stuff set up. I got his phone number. I told him I would never sell it unless the price was right. So if you can meet that price, I'll give you Boyd Holbrook's phone number. But anyway, this is why this is the way. These are the 3 categories that we're going after. We're going after unsolved homicides, 250,000 at least. Remember, at 10.9 million, we're talking about the GDP, just the cost, the tax alone on society is $2.3 trillion. That's more than the GDP of 183 countries. Think about that. Out of 190 countries, give or take, who's being taken over this week, that's higher than 183 of them, right? Missing persons, 225,000 missing persons. And look, this doesn't even include, when you go to NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, there is about, I'd say 5,000 long-term missing. The thing, especially with children, a lot of cases come in, but then a lot of cases come off because they find the kids, sometimes within 24, 72, maybe a week. So what we're going to be focused on are the long terms, the ones that are gone probably at least a year or longer. And that number puts it around 5,000, but 25,000 adults, 15,000 unidentified, and 20,000 unclaimed persons. And a lot of these folks, their bodies are still sitting in the morgue and a medical examiner somewhere. So the recap on the week, that's kind of what we're doing. We've got a lot of stuff planned for this next week. I'll come back with some additional stuff. But just suffice to say, anybody out there who's volunteered, first of all, hats off. We're going to give you some excellent training. I promise you cannot get anywhere else in the United States, not as a civilian. You're going to be interacting. I've already volunteered people. They just don't know it yet, but we'll get people from CIA, FBI, DIA. We'll get people that have done this for a living, done open source. One of my friends, I was actually her first client. I'll see if I can get Cynthia Hetherington and Hetherington Information Services on. They are like the preeminent gurus on open source stuff. So I'd love to get them to come in and do some training. And then we will be doing training. Remember, if you've signed up, if you can't attend, you have to. And I'm going to track this too, because there is a way to track it with a link. If you can't make the training, you have to watch the 2-hour training. You can't do the system. It's like riding a bike. You can't show up. You've never ridden a bike before. Show up and say, "Hey, I watched a video. I'm going to go out and ride." No, you got to be there. You got to watch this. You got to do this. I mean, you cannot say, "Oh, I should have rephrased that." It's more than just watching a video to ride a bike. But unless you practice, unless you've done this, you're not going to have the skills and you're not going to understand the way the system works. So show up for that. The first training will be Monday, August 25th from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It'll be done on Teams. Whitflea will run that. Then we'll do the second part of the training on Friday, same time, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. If you can't make the live training, you need to watch the replay, and then we'll do some work around that. And then we're going to start divvying up these cases now. We are going to focus on Virginia first for two reasons. Number one, that's where I'm at. And look, you have to start small, fail small, fix fast, move forward. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start off in Virginia. We're going to do the pilot training on September 12th with law enforcement agencies and the citizens. The Attorney General's office will be there, Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police, Chesterfield County Police. They're all going to be there. And um, yeah, no. Oh, so Tia was saying August. No, the September is when we launched the portal in the email. And let me double check. Let me pull up the email. Hopefully, I gave you the right. But let me make sure I didn't do this wrong. Volunteers recruiting open. Let me see. Um, let me see here. No. I put it out. Train the trainer. Um, if I made a mistake, I apologize, but it's I'm pretty sure I said everywhere it's Monday, August 25th and Friday, August 29th. What September is, September 4th is when the portal goes live. And then September 12th is our first training session with law enforcement. So Chesterfield's where you live. Well, that's where we'll be doing the training, Linda. So keep September 12th on your calendar, 11 to 12 in the morning. We're training law enforcement from 8:30 to 10:30, taking a half-hour break, bringing citizens in from 11 to 12. So I'll make sure that you get an invite for that. So anyway, that's it for tonight. Like I said, it's been a long week. I love doing this stuff. Sorry for the late night, but I find that we get a lot more people watching. I get a little bit more receptivity in the evening because everybody's busy doing stuff during the day like I was. But I appreciate the help. Again, the numbers, the numbers are what's compelling. This is the way. Fugitives, unsolved homicides, missing, unidentified, unclaimed persons. Our first three focus. We started Virginia, and it won't take long, folks, to get success. Once we do that, then we're going to start scaling out. You'll see in the registration form, if you haven't registered yet, one of the things I've added is just the state where you're at, because as we grow and we get bigger, it'd be good to know what state you're at. Because, for example, I've already had inquiries from Florida, inquiries from Texas, inquiries from California. So as we do that, I'd like to find people in those areas. Why? Because you understand the state better, you understand the area better, and we can do things like that. So, but we will start doing that. But guys, there's a lot of we're juggling a lot of balls right now, trying to, or as they say, also keeping all the plates spinning. So we're going to do that. But thank you guys for your help. Let's just call it a night tonight. Everybody stay safe. And remember, why do we do this? Because justice matters. You guys have a great week, great weekend. Finish up the weekend strong. And I will talk to you this next week.